Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Frank here. Been working some more on the Cub Cadet mini dozer. It's largely done, and last week we finished installing the axletic supporters, the outboard axle supports, which is this member here, which supports bearings and carry the outboard shaft that comes out of the wheel. This is a sprocket here and the idler wheel in the back, and on the other side as well. And so this member here, its purpose is to reduce stress on the wheel and on the axle. It takes up any load that the tension of the track puts on this wheel that would tend to move it toward the rear, and the other wheel, because the track comes down and over, the stress is diagonally, but it has two vectors, one in this direction and one vertical. So this member reduces stresses on the axles and prevents fatigue of the axle shafts, and just general improves the longevity and reliability of the axle system here. But I had one more thing that I had an issue with, and that was clearance of the stabilizer arm on the front of the tractor. And my original plan was to modify this stabilizer arm, but I found that I could gain the clearance between the blade support, the blade frame, and this stabilizer. I needed several inches of clearance to allow this to tilt backwards just by moving it back a couple inches. I took it off of the pivoting bracket here and bolted it directly to the anti-sway plate, and then down here I moved it from the center of this bracket inboard of it, and this is a through bolted with a 3/4 inch bolt. It's bolted here, it's tight, it's captured here. These are swivel eye joints here and up here, and this is a top link from a tractor 3-point hitch. Oh, and we've got Brutus here. Come here, Brew. You being a good boy, huh? What's going on outside? It's turned cold. We're at the end of March, and we've had some really nice weather, 60, almost 70 degrees, but it's turned cold. It was down to 30 degrees last night, and it's supposed to go down to 27 or 28 tonight. So much for in like a lion, out like a lamb for March. So, real simple solution here. I'm going to run it like this and see how it works. I think it'll complete the necessary task of keeping the whole frame from shifting side to side, which is what it's supposed to do. So I'm happy about that. Just turned out to be a real easy fix or adjustment on that. All right. I've got one more change I want to make, and that is to change the location of the tilt lift point. And this cylinder here tilts the whole frame up, rotates it up around these pins as an axis. But this point is a little bit close to the tractor. I'm thinking it'd be better if it were out here about 6 inches further out. So I'm going to fabricate another bracket that'll come up right here and terminate very similarly to this, and we'll move this point out here about 6 inches. Now I do have a longer cylinder. I have a cylinder which is a couple inches longer, which we may use. So I'm going to work on that. We'll see if we can see if that gives a little better tilt. What I want to be able to do is push forward tilt the blade up with one cylinder, back up, put it back down a little more effectively. And I can do that now, but it doesn't tilt it as much as I would like it to. So we get a little more leverage if we move further out. All right, there's one other thing I'm working on, and I think it'll be included in this this episode, and that is a float capability for the blade. When you're pushing, I would like the blade to float and just have the weight of the blade on the ground. As the tractor moves up and down, with the blade out in front, when the tractor moves up and down, the motion of the blade is exaggerated compared to the tractor itself, which is the opposite of a motor grader, where the blade is between the wheels. If the front wheel goes up 2 inches, the blade only goes up 1 inch. So if you go back and forth several times, you eventually work all the ripples out of the roadway. With a bulldozer, when the front track lifts up 1 inch, the blade lifts up 2 inches. So you actually, over time, increase the inconsistencies in the roadbed. Now, real graders have controls. You manage the blade up and down, and a qualified operator can deal with that, and it doesn't cause any issue for him. But for this little tractor, it's got kind of a short wheelbase, so when you hit a bump, the blade comes up and it makes a mess. So I think you saw on the first video with the blade, when I was trying to grade my driveway, I wound up causing more problems than I solved. And now Butchie just came in. What are you doing outside? I heard you barking a little bit ago. Yeah? Have you finished barking? It's cold out there. So, it's about 30 degrees. So anyway, I'm float. So I'm going to make a couple little brackets that'll attach to the lower lift arms, and they'll just provide a couple inches of travel, loose travel of the blade. It'll still allow me to pick the blade up. It'll reduce the height that I can pick the blade up to some extent, but I think it's better to have that float capability. So anyway, that's the other item I want to try to accomplish this episode. So we fixed the stabilizer problem. I want to change the pivot point for the front blade and add some float brackets. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to use these as brackets on the lift arms to allow the blade to float a little bit. We're just going to try them out, see how they work. So I'm working on changing the geometry for the tilt function on the blade, and that is this cylinder pulled on this connection point and tilted the whole blade up on the axis of the main lift pins. But I didn't, because of its angle, I didn't get as much lift as I was hoping for. So I'm changing it a little bit here. Let me just clip these tie wraps here. I talked about putting a bracket like this right here, which would give me a flatter angle and the ability to hopefully tilt it up higher or tilt it up better, having a more direct connection point. And I think with a slightly longer cylinder I might be able to do that, but I'm just looking here and I'm wondering, why can't I just take this and mount it right there? So I think that's something to look at doing. That gets me about 2/3 of the distance to what I was thinking about. Should get a socket for that, but alright, so the cotter pin no longer fits in that castle nut there, but for the purposes of this test, this may be perfectly alright here. I think that's going to work. Certainly going to work better than it did before. So maybe we'll try that out. We'll start the tractor up and test it here. I think that works a lot better. Definitely have a slight issue here with this turning. Came out of position. This rotated, so I need to do something about that. But it does give me the lift that I was hoping it would, so I feel good about that. I think that's a easier solution than building another bracket down out here. I need to figure out how to keep that from turning, but it's only going to turn so far. It's turning because this gap in here is wider. There's extra space. I think if I put a couple spacers in here, washers or something, it would restrict that and it would keep that from turning. So I think by moving the connection from here to out here does give me better lift of the tilt up of the blade. Moving the stabilizer back has also eliminated the interference with the blade mount. So I think just some adjustments here, moving the connection points around, to solve both of the geometry problems that I was having. The interference between the blade mount and the stabilizer, and the angle that this tilt cylinder was being was set at wasn't really conducive to maximum tilt on the blade. And just by moving these couple of points around, I think we've eliminated both of those issues, or dramatically improved them. I'm going to adjust this connection point, this bracket, a bit. Alright, so this bracket here is going to interfere with the cylinder reaching this bracket, so I'm pretty sure I'm not going to use this. I'm going to cut it off. Oh, I need a battery. Alright, I want to make sure I don't tighten this too much. That would prevent the blade from angling, since this does support the tube which runs down and is bolted to the back of the blade. Alright, I need to extend this cylinder, connect this up again, start the tractor up. Alright, so that works much better. The blade angle is a little slow because this is tight, and I think I'm going to the way this blade was originally designed is you could take this castle nut off, take this large washer off, and the tube which supports the blade will drop out of this bracket. but since we've added supports at the bottom of the blade, it can't come out anymore. So this really serves no additional purpose, because I'm not taking the blade off without cutting the frame apart. So I think, I mean, I can take the blade off of this mount because it's bolted in the, it's bolted to the blade, but so I can take the mold board off, but I can't take this mount off the frame. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this bolt, this castle nut a little bit. I'm going to tack weld it to this bracket. I'm going to tack weld this bracket to this large washer. I'm going to weld this washer to the frame to keep it from twisting and to loosen it up so the blade can move a little more easily. All right, so let's work on that. Let me straighten this mount out because this keeps twisting. Let's loosen this up a little bit because it doesn't need to be so tight. All right, let's see about tilting the blade again, or angling the blade again. Alright, so that works fine. I'm happy with that change on the position of this cylinder, and so we'll operate it like that and see how she goes. Okay, let's go work on something else. All right, I cut these little brackets, plates. I actually don't know how well these are going to work, so this is an experiment. We'll see how it works. All right, so this is the idea. So a pair of these will straddle this lift arm at this bolt. So this bolt will go through here, and then that'll give me two places to connect this cylinder to, either through here, which will let this arm float up and down a couple inches, or through here, which will lock it in a solid position so I have complete control. So this will give me two positions to put this arm, and so we'll see how that works. First thing you need to do is undo this. That should help. That should let the blade float. Now I can switch it to the other hole if I need to. So the consequences of this is it reduces the amount that I can lift the blade frame, but with my improvement to the tilt cylinder, I can tilt it more. So I think I'll be fine with this the way it is. Those are the major changes that I wanted to make. I mean, they're not really major. Those are the changes I wanted to make. And so I think it's time to take it back outside and see how it works.